In this video, I'll be sharing with you a requested tutorial from my group on how to cut this conical asymmetric blouse. So if this is something you like, kindly hit on the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. So this dress is from Pamdis Fashion on Instagram. To start drafting this pattern, you need to mark out the upper part first. We're going to work on the upper part and then the lower part. So first you need your shoulder to bust line, under bust line, and waist. Now go ahead to place your tape and measure your shoulder to bust. My shoulder to bust is 9, my shoulder to under bust is 12, while my shoulder to waist is 17 inches. Now this is for the front measurement. For the back measurement, you're going to measure your back measurement too. That is your shoulder to waist. The shoulder to waist of the front and the back is not exactly the same. So I'll start by marking my shoulder divided by 2 here, and I'll come down by 1 inch. So from here I'll mark a basic neckline of 3 inches. So I'm not really working with this neckline, but it's going to serve as a guide. Now I'll go ahead to connect it down. So why I went down by 1 inch here is because the shoulder is not on a straight line. Now I'll mark a basic neckline of 3 inches. Now from here I'll go ahead to connect. So pardon me for using this, I can't really find my curve drill, so I'll just make do with what I have for now. So I'll just go ahead to connect. Now the next step is to find your chest line, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. I'll mark at that point. Go ahead to place my ruler and I will draw out a straight line. Now this measurement you have on your shoulder, you go ahead to place it back. That is your shoulder divided by 2. Place your ruler and draw out a straight line. Now what I'll do is to divide what I have here into 2. By dividing it into 2, 7 inches, dividing it into 2, you have 3.5, but if I fold my tape it will be easier, so you can go ahead to do that. Now from this point, come out by ½ inch. Now here on your chest line, go ahead to mark your bust circumference divided by 4. My own is here. Now I'll place my curve drill, so I'll be making use of this just like I stated earlier, and I'll go ahead to blend this out. So I'm supposed to use my curve drill here, but I can't really find that. So now the next step you're going to take is to mark your nipple to nipple divided by 2. Now my nipple to nipple divided by 2 is 3.5 inches because my nipple to nipple is 7 inches. Now I'm going to go ahead to mark this all the way to the lower part. Now after this, I'm just going to place my ruler and I will connect, drawing out a straight line. Now I'm going to share what I have on the shoulder into 2, and I'm going to fold and mark. So after this, I'll just go ahead to connect it all the way to this point. Now if you look at this dress, it's looking like it has this curve going to the armhole area, but like a princess that was cut off this way, right? So we are still going to use this. You can use this or you can use that other method. So now let's go ahead to continue. So for our dart intake, I'm going to mark ½ inch here, then 1.5 here. If you're plus size, you use 1 inch here and 2 inches here, or if your bust, let's say your bust is from bust 36, 35, 36 and above, you can do that. Now I'll also repeat this here and place this here, right? Now for this part, I'm going to connect from the bust down to the under bust. So please, I'm using this because I can't find my curve drill, but it's still going to serve the same purpose. Now I'll go ahead to connect. So after I'm done connecting, I'm going to blend in with my marker. Now the next step you want to take is to go ahead to connect this from the under bust down to the waistline of your pattern, and you're also going to repeat this at the other side of your pattern also. So now we are going to be cutting this in form of a princess dart. So you're going to find the midpoint at your armhole now. This midpoint, which is the half of your armhole, connect from your bust down to the under bust. Just like I said, you can use this, right? And you can also use this. So whichever one that it works for you is okay. But looking at this pattern, it looks like the pattern looks like a princess off shoulder princess that blouse, conical blouse. So now you're going to go ahead to connect from here to here. Now I'll be using my free hand to do that because the curve tool I have available is not going to do the work. Now after this, I'm going to go ahead to mark ½ inch on both sides for my dart intake here. Now I'll also mark it here. I'll go ahead to blend this out and also blend out the ½ inch into this actual line. Now this ½ inch on both sides, I'll extend it out and I'm going to connect it back into my armhole. So although I'm not going to be making use of this upper part, it's just to mark out this. Now I'm going to blend out this dart very well. It's supposed to go into my pattern very well. Now you're going to determine how high you want your neckline. So I'm using 2 inches for my pattern. So I'm just going to go ahead to mark. So this 2 inches is not a standard. You can use whatever that works for you, right? Now I'm going to go ahead to insert my body measurement. I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Now you can pick this dart here or replace the one you have at the armhole. So we are going to replace this one here now. And I'll go ahead to mark, which is just 1 inch, and then add any sewing allowance of your choice. For this dress, you can use a sewing allowance and the upper part. It's the lower part that you don't really need a sewing allowance, so that the allowance won't be coming out at the lower part of your dress. Now you're going to go ahead to mark your waist, your under bust circumference divided by 4, and measure the dart intake you have here. Replace and add your sewing allowance. Now if you want to snatch out your waist for this pattern, let's say that your waist is 28 and you want to reduce it to 26. Now I'll minus 2 inches from it, which will give me that 26. Now I'll now divide that 26 by 4. I'll mark, then measure these 2 inches that intake. I will replace it here and add ½ inch to my pattern. Now I'll just go ahead to place this, connect and connect all the way up. So I'm done drafting out this pattern. All I'll do is to add my bust dart to it, because the front waistline and the back waistline is not the same. We are using the bust dart technique. Now I'll just go ahead to find my bust dart. To find your bust dart is the difference between your shoulder to waist in front and your shoulder to waist at the back. My shoulder to waist in front is 17 and my shoulder to waist at the back is 15.5. So if you now deduct 15.5 from 17, if you deduct 15.5 from 17, what you have is 1.5. So this is how I got this 1.5 that I'm marking for my bust dart here. Now from here, I'll go ahead to connect. I'll go ahead to draw out, right? And I'll connect, because if you look at that blouse, it's as if that it has here went up a bit before connecting. Now because of this is a princess dart, we use a princess dart pattern to cut this out. So what I will do is, instead of making hair straight, because most times when you're joining this pattern, you find out that this part tends to be slightly longer than this. Instead of using ½ inch exactly, I'll go up a bit for this pattern. you can add like extra half inch from there. So after joining, if you have an excess, you can go ahead to trim it out, instead of having shortage on this side of your pattern. Now I'll just go ahead to cut out, and what you do is to just add that hand or bead, whatever that they added at that part of the dress. That's just it for this part. Now you're going to cut this on full, but for the lower part of this dress, you have to like cut it in full because of the asymmetrical design at that point. So I'll just go ahead to cut this out now, and you're also going to blend out the bust dart on your pattern. Sorry, I forgot to blend it out when I'm cutting. It's best to blend it out before cutting out, so that in case your bust and your under bust does not match, you blend it out. So this is what I have now. Now you just go ahead and join it up. You see what I'm talking about? If you blend it now, if I did not add that little extra inches, it might not meet up, right? So if you have a little excess, you can easily trim it out than it's being shorter. So after cutting this, so I'll readjust this a little. I'll just go ahead to readjust it a little, right? This way, and the angle, or you can just leave it as the original length, because if you look at the dress, there's no much after this joining. It's just very little. So I'll draw out the straight line there now. After drawing out that, I'm going to go ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2 again, and I'll go ahead to connect. I'll divide my armhole by 2, just like we did for the front pattern. Then I'll come in by half inch, mark my bust circumference divided by 4 here. Now I'll just go ahead to connect this back. I'm going to connect this, and I will now connect to the upper part. So after I'm done marking this, the next step I'm going to take is to go ahead to mark my dart. And to mark my dart here, I'll be marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2. So remember, the back pattern does not have a zipper. We're making use of a lacing bar for it. Now I'll go ahead to connect. So after I'm done connecting, I'm going to mark half inch on both sides, on both sides of my pattern. Now I'm going to extend this all the way up towards my bust, or you can come down by 1 inch from the bust. Now for the back pattern, you notice that there was no joining at the back. That means the dart was actually blended out. This is to avoid having much joining at your back pattern. Now after I'm done marking that, the next step I'm going to take is to go ahead to come up by 2 inches, because that is what we have for the front. From our chest line, we went up by 2 inches, right? Now what I'm going to do is, from this point now, I'm going to go ahead to take it all the way down to my chest line. I'll come down by half inch from my chest line, and I'll go ahead to blend this out. So why we went up by this same 2 inches is so that we can have like an armhole effect on this dress, just like that of the dress. Like if you notice on the dress, there's a bead or a strap that was attached from the front to the back. So this now creates the room for you to attach that rope coming from the front to the back. Now you have to go down by half inch here, so that the lacing bar of the dress will not be popping up when you're putting on the dress. Like most times you see in a corset dress or a dress that has a lacing, the back is always shooting up. So if you come down from here, it will help like reduce that on your dress. Now let's go ahead and insert our body measurement. I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. My bust is 33 divided by 4. I have 8.3. Now I'll add my sewing allowance. Use any sewing allowance of your choice. So there's no dots here, right? So there's no need adding any dots. Now we move over to the waist. Remember that waistline we used for the front where we snatched out 2 inches from your waist. Now that waistline is what you still use. Minus that 2 inches from your original waistline, then go ahead to mark your waist circumference. Mark the new waist circumference divided by 4. So now I'm not using much. I did not really snatch much out of the waistline. I'm just using, sorry, I'm just using 2 inches. So I'll measure this dart here now. I'll go ahead to replace it and then add my sewing allowance. So after I'm done marking that, I'm going to go ahead to connect here. So this is just the back pattern. Now we're going to blend this off, because if you look at that dress, they did not join the dress. They blended out the darts. We just had one piece at the back. This will like save you stress of cutting and rejoining. Now please blend yours very well. It's just that I'm not sewing the dress, but go ahead, take your time, blend out your dart, or you can just cut it open and place it so that it will relax very well. So you mark your lacing. So you can use 2 inches, 1.5. This totally depends on you, right? This totally depends on what you want to use. So I'm just going to go ahead to connect this. So this is just the back pattern. If you notice, it is very easy and simple. Now we are going to go ahead to also draft the lower part of this dress. So that is the part that has an asymmetric conical effect on the lower part of the dress. So this is the back, very easy and simple. So for the lower part of this dress, what you need is, to fold it, you need your hip measurement, hip circumference divided by 4 plus extra 2 to 3 inches. So I'm using 2 inches, then you add half inch for sewing. Now what I have here roughly is, let's say 12 and a half. Now for here, you're going to mark the waist circumference divided by 4, right? You're going to mark your waist circumference divided by 4, and then you can decide to like add a sewing allowance to it. You can add a sewing allowance to your pattern. So the waistline you will use is that waistline that you snatched. So if you reduce your waistline, the snatched waistline, that's what you will use here, the new waistline. Then you now go ahead to just add half inch for sewing, because you'll be joining your front and your back together, or you just add 1 inch. Let's say by the time you turn up the front side, you now join the back of the pattern to the front of the pattern with the remaining half. Now this is the waist. Now for the length of this dress, now you notice that this is going towards the hip area. Like from the waist, it went down to the hip point, towards the hip point also. So you can use like extra 7 to 8 inches, because for hip measurement you can use 7 to 8 inches to get towards your hip line. So this totally depends on whether you're tall or you're short. Now I'll go ahead to cut this out. Now this is what I'll be using to cut out my pattern, this one. Now I'll also use this to explain the back, because the front and the back pattern is the same. The only difference is that the back has a zipper, and then at the back there's a dart. So if you add that to your pattern, you can go ahead to add that to the back waistline of yours. So let's say if you're adding that to the back waistline of your own pattern, I'm going to go ahead to add extra 1 inch to the back pattern. So when I'm actually making my dress, I don't really use that for whenever I'm making a princess dart, a bustier, or a corset pattern. Now you've marked your waist circumference, plus the extra 1 inch, and this is what how we divided our dress. Your hip divided by 4 plus extra 2 inches plus half for turn up. So you shouldn't use much here, because if you do, it will not really relax on the body at the side of your hip. It will stand like a cape there, right? Now what you do is, from here you're going to like connect it this way, like a curve. Is not straight. So after curving it out, curving it out, you're going to cut it out. Now if you feel this 7 inches or 8 inches is not long enough, what you do is add extra 1 inch. That means you're using 9 inches after your waistline. So just use between 7 to 9 inches after your waistline. Do not exceed this, right? It might turn out too long. Now open up your pattern. You find out that from the upper part of this pattern, from the side, you come in by your sewing allowance. If your sewing allowance is ½ inch, come in first, then go ahead and connect. Draw like a curve, like you're going up. So now reaching like the quarter part of the half side, like from here, the quarter part, you start going up. Now like when you're going towards the front, the middle of this pattern, what you do is you start sliding down to the other side of your pattern. So I'll just use my marker to outline. Now you can also decide, let's say if you don't, you can always use your French curve to do this, or do what works for you here. So if I measure here at the center, I have roughly like 2.2 inches. Going towards this side, I have like 2 and 2.6. So you can use between 2.2 to 2.5 to create this curve on your dress, right? So if I cut it out, this is what I have. Now I'm just going to cut this out here. So one side is a bit how will I say, slanted than the other side. This side is fuller than that of this side. So if you place this on your body, this will work perfectly on my body because I'm on the smaller size. So my waist to hip point is about 7 inches. So let's say you're working on someone that is too tall, you can use 8 inches. Or if you feel it's not much lengthy and long enough, you add 8 inches. Now this is what you use to cut it out. Place your pattern directly. Now after cutting this, to avoid going through the stress of redrafting and not getting exactly what you have at the front and the back, all you do is just slit the center. This is when you're cutting the back. Now you're going to go ahead to add a zipper in front of this pattern. You add like 1.5 to 2 inches depending on the zipper allowance. What you have to do is place your pattern and add a zipper in front. Place your pattern and add a zipper in front. Now if you want to add a dart to this pattern, what you do is just add extra 1 inch to the sides of your waistline and connect it back when you're cutting, so that when you're sewing, you can now go ahead to sew out. You still have to sew out that you added at the back of the dress. Now I think the reason why they added that is to avoid your pattern to like pop up. But if you join your pattern very well, you can still avoid that at the back part of your pattern. So if you have any questions, go ahead to ask.